I was able to catch most of Duke, Illinois, from the Orlando airport. Actually, I watched the conclusion of the game on the Southwest free Wi-Fi. Shout out Southwest Airlines, sponsor me. Illini absolutely ran away with this one in the second half. This was supposed to be the big road test before the Indiana game, right? And boy, did they pass the test. They were only 2.5-point favorites. Very, very close line. Yeah, Duke wasn't ranked, but they certainly were in the conversation to be. And any road game is real tough, especially playing as early as they did too. I mean, it was it would have been it was 11 a.m. Central Time for Illinois because they played at noon Eastern for Duke. So always nice to when you're out of your time zone too. I mean, they're pretty used to the Eastern time zone overall because there's a lot of Big Ten teams there. They're still in, not too bad, I guess, but still, I think it's always worth noting. The first half was actually a 1-point game, though. I mean, this was not the final score is slightly deceiving. This was a close game for 3 quarters, pretty much. It was 14-13 at the half. And then that's when Illinois just absolutely ran away with it. Duke really was their own worst enemy at the end, but Illinois does deserve some credit too. I'll get obviously a lot more in depth about that. But they absolutely dominated the second half, and especially the fourth quarter specifically. They outscored them 17-0 in the fourth quarter. That certainly helps. The offense was also like in that first half, it just took a second for them to get comfortable, get things going. And once things started to click, boy, did it click. Duke had no answer. The offense was actually outplayed in the first half. They were outgained 240 to 132 in total offensive yardage, and they had given up 4 sacks before halftime as well. The offensive line had. Second half was a lot better for them. They put up 287 yards of offense in the second half. Didn't allow a single sack as well after allowing 4 in the first half. The biggest deciding factor in this one, without question, was the turnover battle. Duke had 5 turnovers, and Illinois did not have any. And that is, you're never going to win a game with a -5 turnover margin, right? I mean, that was, they really, again, even their own coach, Manny Diaz, said that they really were their own worst enemy, were his words. And I think that does pretty much sum it up, but I think Illinois does deserve some credit as well for forcing those turnovers, right? Because 4 of those 5 turnovers were fumbles. Only one was an interception. It was a red zone interception by Tanner Heckel that really helped turn the tide as well. That was a big moment, his interception, but 4 fumbles, and they lost every single one of them. Duke clearly has a ball security problem. You cannot deny that. But you got to give credit to Bret Bielema and the Illini because Bielema knew this, and he said after the game that he had put together video and was showing the defense video of Duke specifically having not just Duke fumbles from last season, but specifically them having the ball punched out. And that's exactly what he encouraged them to do. And that's exactly what we got. It's a combination of sloppiness and just smart play and knowing that that was a weakness of this Duke offense and taking advantage of that. Because if you can win the turnover battle, especially by a margin that wide, you are going to win every single game you play when you win the turnover margin 5-0. And that was, and again, mostly all in the second half too. 2 of those fumbles were from Darian Mensah, their quarterback, the transfer from Tulane, who's got a revenge game this week. I think that'll be an interesting game because I am interested to watch Duke now from here on out. Like, no, are they really, more of a mess than we thought, or are they legit? And Illinois just spanked them. We don't really know at week 2. I mean, I think they are a good team. I think Darian Mensah is legit, but he had 2 fumbles and an interception. He was responsible for 3 of their 5 turnovers. He did at the same time have 334 yards, though, passing and 2 touchdowns. So, I mean, definitely it's a very Jameis Winston-esque stat line, if you ask me, right? Good game, tons of yardage, but also turnover trouble. Passing game for the Illini was very good. It was very good as well to help counter all that yardage from Darian Mensah. Luke Altmyer was fan-freaking-tastic. He was even better than he was against Western Illinois, which, I mean, I get that you're not gunning for it as much against Western Illinois, but he was great in the passing game. He had 296 yards in his own right and 3 touchdowns. He did not have a single turnover. So that clearly was the better quarterback on last Saturday. Their leading receiver, once again, was Hank Beatty with 8 receptions and 128 yards. His breakout is for real. He's done this against Duke as well. Justin Bowick caught another touchdown, 4 catches, 50 yards. Hudson Clement got 2 catches this week. He's starting to get a little more acclimated. He's good. He's going to be a good deep ball threat once he comes to, because clearly Beatty and Bowick are the ones commanding most of the defensive attention, commanding most of the targets. I thought Hudson Clement was going to have a bigger role, right? You guys know that, but I think he's going to be a great deep ball threat once they get him more situated in this offense. He had 2 catches, 39 yards in this one. Colin Dixon also got involved with 3 catches, 36 yards, and a touchdown catch of his own. And then the third touchdown pass that Altmyer had came from Cole Rusk, who I was excited to see find the end zone. He was the only tight end with a catch, and it was the one catch. They kind of went back to their old ways, tight end play. 1 catch, but it was an 8-yard touchdown for Cole Rusk. The run game was fairly involved as well. Only 127 yards combined on the ground, but also 3 touchdowns. When you got 3 touchdowns in the air, 3 touchdowns on the ground, again, you're going to be just fine. There's so many stats that just you really couldn't lose with that. Caden Fagan was the one who led in carries with 17. He had 48 yards, which that's not great for 17 carries. He did have a touchdown, though. Khalil Valentine, 6 carries, 44 yards. He almost matched him. Khalil Valentine was really good in this one. Every single one of his runs had you glued to your screen, and he had a touchdown as well. And then their third rushing touchdown came from Hank Beatty, and this was my favorite play of the entire game. They lined up Beatty. He took a direct snap. It was basically Wildcat, but I don't know if you could actually call it Wildcat, since he is not a running back. But it was a direct snap to Beatty, and he just took off. He had great blocking, and he's a very speedy guy. And so it was a 25-yard touchdown run that he had, in addition to his crazy day receiving. Hank Beatty, that really was like the dagger too. That moment when he ran that in, it's like, oh my God, they're just having fun with them. And this is over. One thing I did know in the run game that was somewhat more of a negative is that Aiden Lawfrey was surprisingly quiet, though. He was the guy in the Western Illinois game week 1, but then he was really held in check. He only got 6 carries and only 5 yards off those 6 carries. So very, very quiet indeed. From Aiden Lawfrey. But overall, the run game didn't need to do too much because the pass game was fantastic. And still, they accounted for 3 touchdowns on the ground. Had some help from Beatty, of course, the receiving core, but still, I personally was very impressed just with the offensive performance as a whole. Again, they just absolutely rolled in the second half. They could not be stopped in that second half, whereas the first half, it took a little second to get going. Defensively, as well, I mean, the big story for the defense, again, are those turnovers and training to punch the ball out and doing exactly that. Tanner Heckel had a very nice game. He had that big interception, which I thought was a very big point, turning point on the defensive end. And then he had a sack as well to pair with that. So that was very good for him, showing his versatility as well. Great game out of Tanner Heckel. Miles Scott, Matthew Bailey, Dylan Roysick, all with 6 tackles as well. They all tied for the team lead. And Gabe Yakas only had 1 tackle, but it was a sack, which was always appreciated. That he's already well on his way to being one of the conference's sack leaders on the season. So yeah, I mean that's a good overall look at just the main takeaways, my takeaways from that game. And that really, it was a big test, and they gave him a good scare in the first half too. It wasn't like this was a blowout the whole way. Like, they have experience playing in a close game in the second half now on the road. And that's what you're going to want for that big Indiana game that is real. It's just on the horizon now. It's now 9 days away. It feels a little longer just because of there's another game before then, but it's right around the corner now. And they really passed that test. Man, I did not expect a blowout of this caliber. Again, the final score is a little misleading because it was all second half points, but still, that's crazy to think about that. They ended with these offensive numbers. Because if you would have told me at halftime, I would have thought you were crazy telling me that's how it was going to finish up. Great second half, and great adjustments, great preparation on the defensive end. I just love that Brett Bielema's got people watching film, punching the ball out specifically, and taking advantage of that weakness that Duke had, and they really, really exposed it. Duke looked bad once Illinois got on a roll. They panicked, bro. So to wrap up my thoughts and opinions on the Illinois destruction of Duke in week 2, which has now made us the number 9 team in the country. Illinois is a top 10 team. I don't think that's happened in my lifetime, at least not since I've been conscious of football. But probably even when I was a toddler, I don't think they reached those heights. Incredible to see them that good. So my stars of the game, as I gave on my short analysis that I did for Western Illinois. Every time I say Western, I want to say Western Michigan, and that's why I pause every time in case someone thinks I'm like having a stroke every time I think about Western. It's just confusing that we played Western Illinois, and now I'm thinking about Western Michigan because I'm talking about them in just a second. But I do want to give my 3 stars of the game, what I'm dubbing my shining Illini. The 3rd star, Tanner Heckel, on the defensive end, had the best day, in my opinion, defensively, with that huge interception. Was just massive. And he had a sack as well. Like I said earlier, great versatility, very well earned 3rd star to Tanner Heckel. And then I went with 2 offensive players with the other 2 stars, because how could you not when they scored 45 points? The 2nd star, even though he's an honorable mention in my first edition, he's got one now. That is Luke Altmyer. He was stellar in this one. He looked better against Duke than he did at home against Western Illinois, which is just crazy to say out loud. He was 22 of 31, 296 yards, 3 touchdowns, didn't turn the ball over once in a game where the other quarterback did it 3 times. A huge part of why they won. He is one of the best quarterbacks in the country. I think that's undeniable after how he played on the road in a big game like that. Again, will really be put to the test when they face Indiana, but I have all the confidence in the world in him. I have all the confidence in the world in this team after they did that. They are well deserving of that number 9 rank. This team is even better than I thought they were going to be, and I was real high on them. I know it's only 2 weeks. I know this is only 1 game, but wow, did they play well in that game. And wow, did our first star for the 2nd week in a row, wide receiver Hank Beatty, play well. He is broken out. He is a genuine superstar. I thought, okay, good game. He had a fun punt return against Western Illinois, but wow, he really showed out in this one. This is a star in the making if he keeps these numbers up. 8 receptions led the team, 128 receiving yards led the team, also had 25 rush yards, third on the team with a rushing touchdown. And like I said, not only was he just the best statistically, but that his touchdown to me, not only was it very impressive that he scored it on the direct snap, but that was just a big turning point for me. Like that, when he did that, I went, oh, this is over. They've got this. That was the dagger, in my opinion. So shout out to those 3 Shining Illini. Had a great time in the Orlando airport and then on my flight back to Chicago, watching the final minutes once I got on the plane. I had a great time. I know you all had a great time as well.